All right, welcome back to another episode of the Kitchen Table Podcast where business gets done. I'm your host, Ken Baden, and today we are here with Jesse Spiegel from NexLev Logic. Jesse, what's up, brother? How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, a funny story. I was, I'm not going to tell on him and not tell on myself. I actually, before the podcast, both of these were scheduled through either our assistant or our partner. And I went to go to lunch, and Dylan was stepped away to the bathroom, which is your bin, and I get a call in the bathroom, no less, like, dude, where are you going? You've got a podcast. And I'm like starting to drive up the road. Thankfully, I was right up the street. And then I hop on, and I can't find Jesse, and I call his partner, and he's like, this time every day he goes for a run and eats lunch. So both of us were trying to take lunch, and instead we're supposed to be on podcast. So I'm glad we were able to make it happen, man, but that makes for a funny story.
I got 2 blocks away on my run, and it struck me that I remembered that they booked me here. So I turned back, and yeah, only a few.
Considering you ran 2 blocks, which means you then had to run 2 blocks back to be on here, you don't look like winded at all. No sweat, no nothing. So I'll give you credit for that, man. That's good. That's impressive, because I would be no good. I lift weights, but cardio, I don't know. I probably should do more cardio. I know it's good for you. So, Jesse, we were talking before the show started, and just kind of getting to know one another like we always do. But specifically about the roofing industry, the State of the Union, just kind of your background, and you've got an extensive background in the roofing industry. And I know we want to focus on NexLev Logic today, and you've got a ton of businesses that you're involved in. But why don't you tell us first and foremost just kind of how you ended up here? You've got the background in the roofing industry, and I know NexLev Logic assists the roofing industry. But if you could please just tell our listeners, how you got here, your experience in the roofing industry, and kind of how you became to be this accomplished entrepreneur and all about NexLev Logic.
Yeah, well, as far as accomplished entrepreneur, thank you. That's flattering. I didn't start my business career in roofing, actually, but when I did get into it, I got into it on the sales side. I would just say I'm a sales guy. That's what I am. And when I say a sales guy, I'm actually like a people person. I like people. I like connecting with people. I like taking care of my people, and that has resulted in me being pretty successful in sales. And so the first storm I went down to, I went down to Florida during, I think it was Irma, in 2017, and I sold. And I did about 3.8 million in about 3 months. And it went amazingly, except the company that I was selling for at the time really couldn't fulfill all the sales that I'd done. They didn't do a really good job. I'd made a lot of promises, and it didn't feel very good, having put my name on all these jobs and then having a company that really didn't hold up their end of the bargain. And so it became clear to me that there was big opportunity here, for me to sell. That was more money than I had ever imagined, to be honest. I'd been running businesses, and making some money, as a business owner, and then suddenly I just jumped into a sales job, and I'd made more money than I'd ever made, as a business owner. And so it's, exciting. But there was also a problem, in terms of, how do you then fulfill, and for me that, I care about my customers. I connect with them. I build relationships with them. I make promises to them, and I feel really strongly that I need to uphold those promises, and I bust my butt to do it. And it wasn't in my control to do that. And so I really, over the years, turned into a systems guy, and that's, I'm just...
It's just not easy for most stereotypical, or I should say prototypical salespeople. So good for you.
Yeah, no, efficiency like drives me, and my mind's constantly just thinking, how do I do this more efficiently? How do I do it more efficiently? And I built systems to allow me to do that. And those systems were systems that I had to implement within the organizations that I was selling for, and they really appreciated them, and they worked. And, from that time till most recently, those sales grew until, I was, able to bring in about $5 to $7 million, single-handedly through my systems and my organization. And the companies I was selling with that I also have really great relationships were like, what are you doing? How can we get some of these systems? And the reality was I was not able to pass it off to them because the system just required so much manual effort. And I had really great systems. They were smart, but it took a lot of work to make them happen. And when AI came in the picture, it was just like, it smacked me really hard. I was like, there is big opportunity here. I saw that, it was basically like the potential to have what I wanted as a business owner, right? Like all these, I hated doing all this. All the systems were not what I'm uniquely capable of doing, which is selling, which is growing relationships, which is being strategic and thinking visionary. So much of systems is phone jockeying, right? Checking spreadsheets, just doing those repetitive tasks really, really well. And I did those really, really well, and I did not like them. And so when AI came around, I was like, we can automate all these processes that I've been doing, and then we can give them to other roofing companies, and it will allow them to do what I've been doing, which really is excellence, right? Like it's bringing excellence to your projects, to your company, to your reputation, and then allowing them to have the time, the space, removing that mental load from them so they can focus on things that they enjoy about the business. And so that's what I'm doing right now. I'm still doing roofing. I'm still, selling and managing projects in Colorado and Florida. But I'm also, really focused right now on developing these systems and implementing these systems, and currently working with the companies and friends and relationships, the people I've worked with for years, and they are now adopting these systems, and I have the in terms of just selling myself and selling what I'm doing to your viewers, which is what I want to do. I have the benefit of lots of years of roofing, right? Like these systems are designed specifically for the reality that I experience, right? And so they work, right? Like I present them to my buddies, my friends, other business owners, and it resonates with them because they truly solve, um, you know, the problems that.
Well, let's talk about some of those problems, actually, Jesse, because you mentioned like you yourself. Now, keep in mind, Jesse's in the Colorado market, so I'm going to go out on a limb here and just, it's one of the top hail markets in the world. I know it has, been a little stagnated as of late in terms of just, some of the years are always going to be bigger and better than other years, right? Like some years you're crushing it and you're doing 5-6+ million as one person, which in some parts of the country, that's an entire office, right? Whereas, some years that guy is a $1 to $2 million rep because there's just nothing there, absolutely nothing, right? Like, so you said that you were even at some point. There were points where you were, I don't know about consistently, but you did mention like $6 million in revenue was like what you had done, and like that just wasn't possible for these companies to keep up with. What were some of the shortcomings you were seeing? Just like lack of the ability to, lack of fulfillment, not being able to manage the quantity, ordering, or all of the above?
Yeah, I mean, I think production is always one, right? It's like being able to produce that many jobs is a thing. And I don't know that my systems actually solve that. But what my systems do is they provide extremely high levels of communication, right? So that they know exactly what's going on through the whole process. Because ultimately, in my experience,
They being the customer or the company or both?
constant commu I mean, down in Florida, right, the lead time on a job can be 2 years, right? Like with the insurance company. So, you've got these really long lead times, and, if you don't talk to a customer from, the time you sign them to the time that that job closes, you're not going to have a very happy or loyal customer, even if you've got, the paperwork, that says that they're your client, if they might resist you, and that's a headache, right? Maybe you can win in court, maybe you can't. But if you spend 2 years working for somebody and you are messaging them once a week, every day for 2 years, you get to the end of that, and they are overwhelmed with appreciation. Like, wow, Jesse, you put so much work in they would never think of pulling that job away. So that kind of communication, it builds loyalty, but it also allows for mistakes, right? Like, mistakes happen, and it's about bringing those mistakes to the customer quickly, addressing them before they have the chance to address them with you, and owning them. And so as long as you're communicating really clearly, there's a lot more leeway. It's when they don't hear from you. And so a lot of what I've designed, what I did previously was, communicating really thoroughly with my production teams constantly to find out what was going on site, and then communicating that to my homeowners so they knew, when teams were going to show up. That's just a big one, right? Like teams just showing up. Nobody knows. They said they were going to be here this time. They didn't show up at that time. We don't know when they're going to be over. Those kind of things create frustration because they don't know what's going on. And so we've got systems in place that automate now communications with your subs. But then also, have incentives, so when we get the thing we need from them on things that are above and beyond, we have an automatic Venmo payment that goes to them. So I need certain pictures collected. Well, we're going to incentivize you to do that. So now we can see what pictures you've sent us. We see which ones are remaining. Our AI continues to follow up until we get all of the pictures that we need. As soon as we get that last picture, ching, ching, your phone buzzes, you've got a payment. And then in that same communication, we're collecting information from them and we're automatically sending updates to the homeowner. So they know what's going on, where we are, how much further along in the project, asking if they're happy. If they're not happy, we can escalate those things to management. If they are happy, we can tell the crews, hey, you did a great job today. They said you guys did awesome. And then at the end, if they're happy, we can turn them over to another workflow that'll collect a review from them. So now we're getting also 100% review capture. Review capture, I spent so much time doing review capture in my history, right? And I get great reviews. I get long, page-long reviews. Like my review book is thick. I bring it with me because I want people, they don't ever read it, but I always open it up because I got just amazing reviews. And now we can do that by, one, giving that same kind of communication constantly, but then by just making sure that they go into a system where they get asked for the review persistently until they either give it to you or they say, go away.
I love that actually, because we've actually been trying to increase our reviews. I mean, we've tried so many different things with automations and systems ourselves, and nothing's ever been more effective in our experience than the actual rep asking, you know what I mean? And during and when they ask is also important. But I would love to see on an AI, we haven't tried AI yet. You know what I mean? I would love to see how that works.
So here's the thing is, you see so much stuff come in your inbox these days, that shit. It's like, oh, this is AI. This is like a really cheap funnel, and I think the truth is if you just put a little bit, the same kind of care you put into your business, put it into this stuff too, so that the messaging truly is articulating, or is communicating from your voice, right? From the kind of integrity you have, so that when you're asking for that email, so that when you set up that text message, it sounds like you, and it communicates like you. And, same thing with emails, you can spend the time and put it, the problem is with AI, some people get lazy, right? They just have it punch out some proposal and they send it in. And, that's cheap. It has mistakes. People can see that it's actually now you just look lazy. Instead of you looking professional, you look lazy. Whereas if you take the time, you can actually take that and make it so good. And so you could you could spend the time on these automations and make it, so that your people are getting really rich, thoughtful communications constantly that really, feel like personal.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I can see where, so, as a roofing business owner myself, we have an operations and a production department, and we've actually been focused on the last few years, certainly making sure we hit goals and we stay within profit standards. We just had a meeting last night, finally finalizing last year's, because we switched from cash to accrual. And, we have our eye on a specific target net profit. And we kind of got caught slipping a bit in that, we weren't able to install all of our gross, we were still thinking cash basis. And, okay, well, we did 10.1 or whatever, right? So we're cool with that being the case. But in reality, accrual basis is what you install, right? And so that affected our net profit and whatever. It's last year. It wasn't like it was abysmal, but it wasn't what we thought it was going to be, because it would have been what we thought it was going to be if it was based off of our gross sales and we had installed that. So there's even probably, I would imagine, stuff that could help sniff out. We have several different markets, because we're never going to be Denver or Colorado or Texas, where we have these hail storms that just, for us to go do 20, 30, 40, 50, we've got to have 3, 4, 5 offices. And actually this year we're starting 2 new ones. So, our goal this year is really to jump into that scale and kind of blow up. But in order to do that, to your point, we didn't want to find ourselves in a position like you found yourself, which is a giant mess, because now we have all this volume that we can't handle, you know what I mean, or can't handle it to the standard that we have set for ourselves. So we really went back and made sure that we stayed a certain size last year and just hit the goal that we set out. We went 5 to 7 reps here, 5 to 7 reps here, like very modest goals to find and fine tune the details in the operations department, the production department, even our sales team leads, to ensure that now we're able to handle that. And we have a clear-cut case of like, okay, we do our welcome call within 3 days of receiving the information. We do our pre-installation call at this point, you know, like, but even then, man, like, I wonder if something like this could be implemented in an addition to situation where it's like, yeah, we think we can scale to this much, but you just don't know with one person or even an assistant until you're in the fire, kind of, you know. And so, like, would a product like this benefit a company like mine, where it's like we have a lot of that stuff in place, but to your point, we're not, you know, we got 1 or 2 guys, and there's only as much as that human. And then we set up automations, to your point, to go along the way. I don't know if you're familiar with the AccuLynx CRM, but most of them have automations. As you move them, you can set them to trigger as you move. And so that's going to give them an update as well. And our sales guys are trained to make sure they're updating our clients at least once a week. I just got out of a training today, actually echoing that. Like, if you do not communicate with your clients at least once a week, if not twice, I don't care if you have anything to tell them or not. You just need to communicate, because the biggest reason customers leave, or the biggest reasons why you have problems with customers or collecting checks or them ghosting you, is a lack of communication. 100%.
Absolutely. No, I mean, that's, you know, like, that's what I always have done well, right? Communicate, like, just spend the time, carve out a piece of my week every week to call every one of my customers every single week. I did that. And I swear that is something I tried to drive into people, but they don't, you know, it's a hard thing to do. They, you know, and I've done sales trainings with, you know, companies I've worked with. I've tried to drive that to people, but they don't do it, you know, and some people do, but they don't do it with the incessant, you know, quality that it needs, right? It really does require that. And so, you know, you've said so many things that I want to speak to. So I guess, you know, one thing is, you know, I just had a meeting with a good friend of mine. He runs the company. I won't tell you the name of the company, but he runs a company. They got 5 offices across the country, and we're working together. He's, you know, I've been working with him for a long time. And, you know, I'll say one thing is, you know, phase 1 for us with him is to plug up the leaks first, right? Before we try and add volume into the funnel, how do we stop it from leaking out, right? How do we, do better speed to lead? How do we do better conversion and capture? And the thing you said about the reps is true. Like, there is that training, but also what I think is so cool about this technology is you can support, like, you still need those reps, right? But we can make their lives so much better. We can make them so much better at their job, and we can make it so much more enjoyable, because right now they're spending so much time mentally trying to, like, do this thing that they're resisting, and we don't do it often, you know, because we want to just go get the new one. The new one's easier. And in some way it is, you know, like, I also, you know, if I have to choose one or the other, I'm going to do the new one, because somebody who said no at the first pitch is, you know, like, it takes that continued effort over and over. But we've now got systems where they don't have to, right? Where now, you know, if they don't sell in that first one, we put them into an automation, and there's no lead left behind. Now we've got, you know, I mean, we've got the ability to have them have an AI note taker in their pitches, right? So it hears the entire pitch. It knows what the objections were. It knows all about them. That can then be used for a sequence after the fact. So now it's going to be communication from their sales rep, following up with them continuously, ongoing forever, until they say yes or they say no. And when they say no, we still come back to them at 30, 60, and 90 days just to check, just to make sure. And so basically now, and when those close for them, when it gets them to say yes, because some percentage will, right? It's just a numbers game. You go back to all your people all the time, you'll get some of them. Now those are sales they're getting. They're getting those commissions, and they don't have to do all that follow-up, and it still escalates to them when it needs it. So, you know, that follow-up thing that is really kind of just a pain in the ass, right? Like, those guys, what you're training, right, is not Yeah, you're training the behavior, like the practice of calling back, but the skill really is probably not what you're probably not telling them like what the technique on those calls is, right? Probably more of your technique is in that initial pitch, right? And that's where, and I could be wrong, but that's where, those guys do want to be better. That's where they're interested in being better. They're excited to get in front of more customers, pitch them, close them. They're not excited about follow up.
No, no, probably not. But it is part of the job,
Yeah.
to your
No, it's
point.
totally part of the job. Totally part of the job.
But
Unless you,
I love the idea of giving them any tools that we can to make them better at their job. Like I love that. And so
yeah.
when you said that, like to me, I'm a big proponent of like, look, I'm going to provide you all the tools you need to do this job effectively. And
Yeah.
so,
Well, something else that's so cool is we got these AI note takers that are listening to their calls, right? And here's the objections, right? And so now it creates reports for the management that says, hey, here are the objections we're hearing regularly that are not getting overcome, so they can train word tracks for the top objections. Or even it could create an email that automatically goes to the rep at the end. Hey, you heard this objection. This might have been how you could have overcome that.
is that something that's all part of your software?
I mean that stuff is easy. As far as pulling data out, right? It's just like what kind of scorecards do we want? And so that's on a case by case basis is creating scorecards.
So would you say you're kind of case by case to the needs of the company?
Well, I mean, we've got a end-to-end system. Basically, it's like a spine with 6 different modules that you can take if, you could take all 6 of them if you wanted, or if you only wanted a few of them. Then there are tweaking that go on for each one. So once we go in there, there's setup costs because we have to tweak each one. Everybody's lived reality is a little different. But that's how we're productizing, at least this one thing, right? There's things out of those 6 modules that we're also working on. But we've got kind of 6 modules that start with filling your funnel, speed to lead, no lead left behind, subcontractor maintenance and communication to the homeowners, review capture.
I love the speed to lead thing. It's so weird. I just got off of a pitch for an AI product that one of my mentors is using, and it's the same thing. They're like, look, but they're mainly focused on like replacing the call center. But one of the things was just that, like we tried it, and I mean, it called me in like 2 seconds. And so like that's part of your deal too, is like you start from procurement all the way to operations and production, and like
If this was a live show, my business partner Ben would be watching it, and he would have AI agents set up for you by the end of the call. He'd text you a number, he'd be like, "Here's your AI agent. Let us fulfill this for you."
Yeah, well, I mean, we may need to talk because we were just talking about that, like literally just before. I'd love to chat about it. I mean, I certainly see certain places, even within my own business, like that was one of them where I'm like, hey man, speed to lead, I love it. I love it. Like I see relevancy there. Another one he was pitching me was on replacing, we do retail too. So we have canvassers that then call into the call center, and you call into dispatch qualifies and just retakes the information, puts them on the calendar, and they have them do that as well. I don't know for sure if I think I see the value there too, but it all comes down to the cost proposition. Like but anyhow, I would imagine it's going to negate the need.
If are they writing all that information down at the?
Well, the canvasser is, and
So
then
they could
they're
literally just
calling
take a
it
picture
in.
of that document and then send it in, and our AI will just take all that information and put it right into your CRM. And then that would automatically trigger an automation doing whatever we wanted it to do. So we got that, boom. As soon as that comes in and they text it, they get calls, emails, that document sent to them, whatever you decided was the strategy.
I think some of it is in like the safety net of like it looks good too, where it's like, let me call my call center and just make sure that this is on there. It's just the optics, I think, too. But I would imagine you guys could do that.
Got it. That makes sense. That's smart strategy.
And it sounds like you guys would do that as well. But we're trying to integrate wherever we can. Like where I would be interested is right away like reviews, and the 2 things I just mentioned. But we do retail and insurance restoration. So would you say that your systems are mostly set up for your roofers that are going to be more insurance restoration, or possibly both, or?
I'd say, I mean, there's products for both of them for sure. There are certain products that retail customers want that insurance guys are like, that doesn't apply to me. um,
And vice versa.
and vice versa, exactly. A seasonal business model also, like, yeah, it just has different needs and different cash flow, and yeah. So, but ultimately, we've got stuff for both. There's certainly overlap. The speed to lead stuff applies to both, right? You might not need speed to lead if you're just chasing storms all year long, because you don't need that kind of thing all year long. So I've got a company that we just contracted with yesterday, and they're strictly storms, and so we work with them on a storm basis, right? We'll set up their system, but then we're going to be supporting them during storm season.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I could see the need for both. And well, I could see you guys coming in and kind of doing different strokes for different folks, but having a need. AI isn't necessary. Like, if you're not using it, I think you're really just, I don't know, foolish at this point. I mean, there's just so many things. Even the oldest and most stubborn owners could definitely benefit. But if somebody wanted to at least get just like a demo on, like, hey, I just want to kind of take a look at how some of this might work within my business. Is this something you guys are like taking on new clients, or?
We are. I mean, yes, we are. I keep shutting off my lead gen because it's involved, and so that said, go to our website nexlevlogic.com, and ask for there's a button on there. I think it says audit or discovery or something like that. Ultimately, set up a call, and what we do is we just kind of talk about your business, understand what your workflow is, what is, feeling like a bottleneck, or what's some repetitive tasks that you're doing, or where your ball's getting dropped, just giving us an idea for it. And then we'll put together a proposal that you can, consider. I'd like to do that for you.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think when we hop off, we'll have to set that up. I mean, just so happens we were just talking to somebody else about something similar. So if nothing else, the things I was talking about. But, for us this year, it's all about, we want to make the growth that's necessary, but also keep the bottom line where it needs to be, right? Because growth for growth's sake, we're not interested in a $50 million company that breaks even, right? We want to make sure that at all times we're maintaining our net profit. But to that point,
and that's why I think phase one is tightening it up, right? Like, how do you tighten up the ship first, before you try and bring in more? How do you make it so that you can handle additional volume, so that you're capturing, so that you're converting, the leads that you already have, instead of leaving stuff on the table. And I think that's step one.
There's also a spot I can think of too, but we'll need to talk. Like, have you guys ever considered like rehashing, or, like, to your point, like repurposing your existing database, constantly communicating with them, and just making sure we're getting the most of the leads? I mean, Rehash for me on the retail side is going to actually be truly like one of my sales managers, or someone's going to actually get and go out there and try and repurpose an unsuccessful selling point. But there's so many other ways too, like on the insurance side. So I'd imagine there's a way AI can help that be better no matter what.
What do you mean by rehashing?
Well, let's say a sales rep on the retail side goes out to a customer's proposal and they're unsuccessful. Well, standard operating procedure would typically be a sales manager or a different department, Rehash, would pick that up like the next day. And typically how that's broached is they get a phone call one way or the other, and then reintroduce the idea of like, hey, we understand we didn't move forward. Why is, we're not irrelevant, but the way they get to that conversation is different strategy behind that, but just the same, they get there. And when they finally get there, it's like, well, sounds like it might have been a price thing. If so, we may have something we can do about that. And they attempt to take like one last stab at it with a really aggressive, price point. And then before they, wash their hands of it. Some companies will send a really good rep out to do that. Some companies will do the opposite and just have someone on the phone throwing them like a 20% margin, you know what I mean? Like last ditch effort kind of deal.
Well, it's what will you do? Like to me, if you've got a system in place that's going to send out, your shark or your closer or somebody who's just really high level, then that seems like a pretty effective, smart, worthwhile thing that's going to be more effective than, just sending, a text message, right? We can automate some text message, email communication, but if you have the infrastructure, the people, and the desire to make that happen, I think that seems like a smart strategy, to send in somebody who's actually, who's capable and give it a real strong shot. And if you're not going to do that, you might as well
Right.
do something, do a different follow up, and get, yeah.
Take a stab at it in one direction or the other and at least get something from it. I mean, that's usually like 20-30% in revenue you can pick up. I mean, we were looking at that last year. It's something we can really improve on. So yeah, man. I mean, I know personally. One, I mean, just to reiterate, if you're listening and you're a roofing business owner and you want to talk to either Jesse or his partner, go to nexlevlogic.com. Is that what you said?
NexLevLogic.com.
Nexlevlogic.com. Click whatever the prompt is.
NEXLEV. It's NEXLEV Logic.com.
Oh, okay. No T. So NEXLEV. NexLev, no T. Yep. NexLevLogic.com and check them out, guys. I mean, AI is definitely the future. Automating and systemizing and optimizing is certainly something we're focused on. We have been focused on all last year, all winter, even up to this point to be ready for spring. We just started throwing more and more and more reps. We're going to continue doing that all of March. We want to take advantage of March, of course, but like we're just, now we're in that building point of like, okay, all the other stuff is secure. Now we need sales reps, sales reps, sales reps, sales reps. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear that from so many people. It's like getting reps, keeping reps,
Yeah, keeping reps. Fortunately, we have a pretty good rate of retention, maybe even to our detriment. But I would love to talk to you personally, actually, my friend. But we don't want to make this about us. So optimize, systemize, do all of those things. I think this is an excellent year for it. Honestly, it's a great time for it because if you're going to do it, you're always going to have to like fool with the airplane while it's in the air. It just is what it is. But it's great to do in the winter while you're still waiting for spring to pop off, especially for the busy season, and we're getting closer and closer. So my 2 cents. But Jesse, I'm going to wrap this up because selfishly I want to talk to you. So do you have anything else in parting words of wisdom that you want to pop off to our listeners before we do?
No, I mean, it was a pleasure. Enjoy the conversation and no, not at all. Good to go.
Yeah. Okay. If you had any voice of any words of wisdom to the sales reps out there from the insurance reps. Oh, you know what? One thing
knock on those doors.
Knock on those doors.
I mean, honestly, it's like I'm all about this tech, but for real, like I'm a door knocker. I love the doors. I think door knocking is just to me always been the most amazing thing. Like you just walk into a neighborhood, knock on doors, and get money. And to me, that's like, that's where it all, to me, that's a skill set that is the most valuable and
AI ain't taking that anytime soon.
No, heck no. I mean, honestly, and connection, right? You can connect with people.
Human connection.
I like what I do because I like, I like going into someone's business, helping their business, but I also like building relationships. Yeah. And you can't build a relationship anywhere better than face it to face at the door,
You heard it first from an AI guy himself, man. Door to door is king, and it always will be for my money. Also, we mentioned before the call, you were saying how you had seen the industry pivoting and a lot of people in the insurance restoration world kind of scrambling to learn retail. Would you say that's also happening even in Colorado? I'd be surprised to hear that, but I guess maybe not. But
no, I think it's. I think it's definitely a thing. I think that. I mean, certainly in Florida, right? I work in Florida a good amount, and that place is for sure that's happening in a big way. Is people are recognizing that insurance industry is changing and you have to change with it. But I think across the country, insurance is changing, and
I've seen it in Minnesota too. I just figured but
no, I think listen. I mean, I still make money in insurance. I still see businesses making money. It's still a viable business. I just think that, you need to see the writing on the walls and you need to adapt and you need to, you don't need to, but
you'd be smart and well informed to at least add retail to your arsenal if you haven't already, especially just given the way things are progressing?
I definitely think so. I've worked with companies who are trying to do it. I definitely see a lot of companies that are struggling to do it. It's, a different mentality. It's a different skill set. It's a different, way of doing things, and you've got different expectations of margins, and and so you need to adjust some of your thinking. And I see companies, especially companies who've been doing the storm thing for a long time, struggling to do that, but also, seeing that they need to. So.
Yeah, I would agree too, man. I think that's a big, 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 big wave that's come. In fact, like I said, that Baden Consulting's almost entire premise at this point is just that. Like, it wasn't, but it's been such a demand that it's like that's kind of the whole thing now. Is if you're an insurance restoration roofer and you want to learn retail, which most of them do, we can help you either. We can help teach you to fish, or we can sell you the fish, but we have hands on and we had, hands off, but just depends on how deep they want to get. We can get all the way in and help build it out in 90 days, or we can, do a 1,000-foot view and show you what's what. But either way, that's been really all I've been doing for the consulting thing, man, for the last 2 years now. Well, a year and a half, but I would agree. So, on that note, if you know anybody on your side, by the way, that you're looking at that's struggling, man, and pass them on, I would greatly appreciate it. And I'll do the same. But I want to jump off and talk to you, and we're going to actually go get a chance to get our lunch now. So, guys, check them out at nexlevlogic.com. Until next time, don't be dumb and ignore AI. It's a really valuable tool. Optimize, systemize, get better. Let's go after it. We'll see you next time.